The Young and the Restless spoilers Saturday's full November 8, 2025. Change is stirring again in Genoa City, the kind that reshapes alliances and tests the boundaries between ambition and the heart. As Jack Abbott and Diane Jenkins look toward the future of Jabot, their attention inevitably turns to their son, Kyle Abbott, a man torn between duty, legacy, and a love that has never stopped haunting him. Jack, pragmatic yet deeply sentimental beneath his steely exterior, knows Kyle's departure for Los Angeles might seem like business strategy, but it is also something more personal. Diane, ever the mother with quiet insight, senses that Kyle's unfinished feelings for Claire Newman have created a tension he cannot escape. Together, they begin encouraging him to return to Los Angeles, under the guise of opportunity, but with the hidden hope that he will find emotional clarity in the chaos he left behind. At the same time, across the glossy streets and sun-soaked studios of Los Angeles, a confrontation brews that could unravel yet another layer of deceit. Sienna Bacall, beautiful and dangerous, has cornered her brother Mitch, known to others as the enigmatic Matt Clark, demanding that he tell her the truth. The tension between them is electric, not just familial but moral. Sienna knows Mitch has been manipulating everyone around him, twisting lives into his own labyrinth of revenge. She has tolerated his games before, but this time it is different. The stakes have changed. The shadow of Audra Charles's disappearance still hangs over the city, the $500,000 theft unresolved, the body misidentified. Sienna suspects that Mitch Matt is entangled in it all, and she refuses to be complicit any longer. Her demand for truth is not just about justice, but about survival. Meanwhile, Claire Newman finds herself in a quieter, more introspective storm. Since arriving in Los Angeles, she has been pulled into Holden Novak's magnetic orbit, his reckless energy both exciting and terrifying. Holden lives life like a man constantly flirting with the edge of disaster, and Claire, in her guarded innocence, has been both drawn to and repelled by that energy. She has learned from him, perhaps more than she wanted to. His unpredictability has forced her to examine her own desires and fears, the things she wants to become and the parts of herself she's not ready to face. When she returns to Genoa City, Victoria Newman immediately notices the shift in her daughter's demeanor. Victoria has always been sharp, able to sense turmoil beneath even the calmest surface. She confronts Claire gently but directly, asking what she has learned from her time with Holden. Claire hesitates before admitting that she has been questioning her choices, her impulses, and her need to feel alive even when it leads her down dangerous paths. Her confession that she might have gone too far leaves Victoria uneasy. It's not the words themselves but the tone. A mixture of guilt and longing that sets off alarm bells. When Victoria asks if Claire has done something she can't undo, Claire assures her that she hasn't, but the hesitation lingers like smoke after a fire. Then, the truth begins to surface. Holden isn't just a fleeting fascination. He's a symbol of a life lived without boundaries, a reflection of everything Claire is afraid to admit about herself. She realizes she cannot live like him, chasing chaos, mistaking intensity for love. And so she tells her mother the truth: there is no future with Holden. The thrill was fleeting, the lesson enduring. But love doesn't vanish with reason, and Victoria knows it. Her thoughts turn to Kyle Abbott, the man whose patience and loyalty have defined his relationship with Claire. Victoria's tone softens when she mentions him, but Claire's response is bittersweet. She admits that part of her will always love Kyle, that his stability, his kindness, his understanding once anchored her in a world that often felt unsteady. But she also confesses that she cannot give him what he wants right now. Kyle seeks permanence, while Claire is still learning who she is. Her time with Holden has made that painfully clear. She loves Kyle, but she's not ready to be bound by him. Victoria, ever pragmatic, doesn't argue. She merely says that if that's how Claire feels, Kyle deserves to know the truth. It's a moment that encapsulates both maternal wisdom and quiet heartbreak. The recognition that sometimes love must be let go, not because it has died, but because it cannot yet survive. Back in Genoa City, Kyle's parents are already setting their plan in motion. Jack sees in his son not just potential but restlessness. He understands what it's like to love someone who complicates your life, and he fears that unless Kyle faces Claire again, that ghost will continue to haunt him. Diane agrees, though her reasoning is different. She has spent years rebuilding her life and reputation, and she believes that Kyle's return to Los Angeles could be a step toward both personal and professional renewal. She tells him that Jabot's new partnership with an LA firm could use his leadership, a half-truth meant to disguise a deeper motive. She hopes that by returning, Kyle might rediscover not only his purpose but his peace. In Los Angeles, Claire's world grows even more tangled. Sienna's confrontation with Mitch sends ripples through the city. Secrets once buried begin to claw their way to the surface. Claire's association with both Holden and Kyle draws unwanted attention, and whispers spread that she may have been closer to the missing money and the missing woman than anyone realized. The investigation into Audra's supposed death resurfaces, now tied to Matt Clark's reappearance. If Mitch is indeed Matt, then every connection he's made, with Sienna, with Holden, with Claire, is part of a larger game. As the threads tighten, the emotional center of the story becomes clear. Each character is being forced to confront the version of themselves reflected back by others. Kyle must decide whether to fight for a woman who no longer knows what she wants. Claire must choose between freedom and stability, between the dangerous thrill of chaos and the quiet strength of love. Victoria must face her own fear that her daughter is repeating her mistakes. And Sienna must confront the man who once protected her but now threatens to destroy everything she values. When Kyle finally agrees to return to Los Angeles, he does so with mixed emotions, part obligation, part instinct. Jack's pride masks his worry, and Diane's smile hides her fear. They know that their son is walking back into a world of deceit, one where love and danger are indistinguishable. And yet, deep down, they also know that this is the only way forward. The past can't be buried, it must be faced. For Claire, the arrival of Kyle in Los Angeles will be the moment everything changes. Her careful balance between past and present will collapse, forcing her to confront her unfinished feelings. Holden's ghost, Sienna's truth, Mitch's lies, they all converge in a single, defining moment. She will have to choose what kind of life she wants, one defined by passion and risk, or one built on honesty and trust. And as the lights of Los Angeles shimmer over a city that thrives on illusion, the characters of Genoa City find themselves drawn once more into the eternal dance of the young and the restless, where love is never simple, truth is never pure, and every choice carries a cost that echoes far beyond the moment it's made. The airport lights of Los Angeles shimmered in the distance as Claire Newman glanced at her watch, realizing time had slipped away faster than she imagined. The city had given her everything she didn't know she needed: lessons, mistakes, and the kind of introspection that only comes from standing too close to danger. But now, as her car waited at the curb, she knew she had to leave. Holden Novak had consumed too much of her attention, too much of her energy, and she wasn't about to give him another second. She grabbed her suitcase, her steps quick, determined. Yet before she could close the door behind her, a familiar voice froze her mid-step. Holden stood there, smiling, too calm to be coincidence. He told her he was heading to the airport too, same flight, apparently, he said with a careless grin. What a lucky coincidence. But Claire's expression didn't soften. She didn't believe in coincidences anymore. Not after Los Angeles. The ride to the airport felt like a chess match played in silence. Holden tried to fill the air with easy charm, but Claire's replies were short, detached, polite in tone but cold in intention. She could sense something about him had shifted since their last encounter, a strange energy, darker and less certain. He seemed to be watching her more than talking to her, as if measuring her reactions, as though he knew something she didn't. She stared out the window, counting down the miles until she could be free. Los Angeles had taught her too many hard truths, that attraction and danger were often twins, that love without boundaries always came with consequences, and that sometimes walking away was the only kind of courage left. Back in Genoa City, the Abbott mansion felt heavier than usual. The house had seen decades of triumph and tragedy, but tonight the air carried the weight of regret. Jack Abbott sat at the edge of his desk, Diane standing near the window, both of them caught in that rare and painful moment when pride gave way to guilt. "We were wrong," Diane admitted softly, her voice steady but burdened. "We pushed Kyle too hard. We made him come back from California before he was ready, before he knew what he wanted." Jack didn't respond at first, he simply nodded, running a hand across his face. For all his years of experience, he still struggled when it came to his son. Kyle had inherited his fire, his restlessness, but also his longing for something real. When Kyle entered the room, the look in his eyes said he already knew what they were about to tell him. Jack turned to face him, his voice low but certain. "We want you to go back to Los Angeles," he said. "Fight for the woman you love." For a moment, Kyle said nothing, caught between the urge to argue and the instinct to protect himself. Finally, he exhaled. "Even if I go back, I don't know if Claire wants me there anymore." His honesty hung in the room like fog. Diane stepped closer, her tone sharper, almost maternal. "You'll regret it if you don't try. You can't spend your life wondering what could have been." The sincerity in her words disarmed him. He didn't want to admit she was right, but he felt it. Without another word, he turned and climbed the stairs. Moments later, the sound of drawers opening, bags being packed, and footsteps moving purposefully filled the house. For the first time in months, Kyle had direction, even if it was born of confusion. But elsewhere in the city, another confrontation was unraveling into violence. Mitch Bacall stood face to face with Nick Newman in a dimly lit hallway, the tension thick enough to suffocate the air between them. Mitch's confusion seemed genuine, or at least well-rehearsed. He claimed he didn't know who Nick was or why he'd been attacked. His calm, almost clinical tone only infuriated Nick more. "You don't know who I am?" Nick growled, his jaw tight. "You're Matt Clark. Don't pretend you're not." Before Mitch could react, Nick's fist connected with his jaw, a sharp, decisive hit that sent him staggering backward. Nick's rage had been simmering for months, and now it exploded in full. "If you come near my family again," Nick hissed through gritted teeth, "I'll kill you." "That's not a threat, that's a promise." He turned and stormed away before anyone could stop him, leaving Mitch clutching his face, his eyes burning with something that wasn't just pain, it was confusion, fear, and perhaps a flicker of recognition. Sienna Bacall had witnessed enough to feel the world tilting beneath her. "That man, that was Nick Newman," she said, her voice sharp with disbelief. "The same man who keeps calling you Matt Clark." Mitch blinked, shaking his head as though trying to erase the words. "I don't know why he said that," he muttered. "I don't know why I called him Nick. It just came out." The statement hung between them, too strange to be brushed aside. Sienna crossed her arms, frustration rising. "Something's not right," she snapped. "Nick Newman isn't the kind of man who punches strangers for no reason. You must have said something, or done something." But Mitch only looked at her with that same unsettling calm, insisting they forget the entire thing. The air between them shifted again, the tension thickening into something unspoken. Sienna's mind raced, connecting dots that shouldn't have aligned. Mitch's name slips, his vague memories, the way his eyes sometimes drifted when she mentioned the past, all of it painted a picture she couldn't ignore. "Did you know the Newmans before you met me?" she finally asked, her tone quieter, sharper, testing him. Mitch didn't answer immediately. He was staring at the wall, lost somewhere she couldn't reach. When she pressed further, he cut her off abruptly, his voice colder than she'd ever heard it. "I want to know about you and Noah," he said. The question struck her like a slap. "There's nothing to tell," she said, defensive, almost panicked. Nothing happened. But Mitch's eyes were fixed on her now, his calm mask slipping into something darker. "Then why does Nick Newman think he knows you? And why does he keep calling me Matt?" His tone wasn't accusatory, it was haunted, as though he was trying to piece together a puzzle that existed inside his own mind. For the first time, Sienna saw genuine fear flicker across his face, and that terrified her even more than his anger ever had. In the silence that followed, neither of them knew what to believe anymore. If Mitch truly was Matt Clark, then his memories might be fractured, twisted by trauma, deception, or something far more sinister. If he wasn't, then someone was deliberately pushing him toward that identity, planting the idea until it became reality. And if Sienna's past with Noah wasn't as clean as she claimed, then all the tangled threads between the Bacalls, the Newmans, and the Abbotts were about to snap. Back at the Abbott mansion, Jack and Diane stood together by the window, watching the last lights of Kyle's room go out. They had done what parents often do, pushed their child toward the one thing that might hurt him most, because they believed it was right. Diane whispered that she hoped he would find what he was looking for in Los Angeles, even if it wasn't Claire. Jack didn't answer. He just stared into the darkness, knowing that when love and legacy collided, there were never any guarantees. And somewhere between Genoa City and Los Angeles, on a flight cutting through the quiet of midnight, Claire Newman sat beside Holden Novak, pretending not to notice the way his eyes lingered on her reflection in the window. She didn't believe in fate anymore, but as the plane climbed higher, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was flying straight into it. The sterile light of the hospital corridor reflected against the white tile floors, stretching endlessly as Nick Newman walked toward his son's room. His footsteps echoed in slow, uneven rhythm, each step weighted with dread. He had spent his entire life confronting threats, corporate rivals, family betrayal, ghosts from the past, but nothing compared to the helplessness of watching his own child lying in a hospital bed. When he reached Noah's room, his breath caught in his throat. The bed was empty. The sheets were neatly folded, the machine silent. Panic surged through him, sharp and immediate. For one horrifying moment, he thought Noah was gone again, vanished like too many others in this family's cursed history. Sharon appeared from the other side of the hallway, her face calm but weary. "He's fine," she said gently before he could speak. "He's in radiology. The doctors are running a few more tests before they take off the bandages." Nick exhaled, a shaky mixture of relief and residual fear. The hospital smell, antiseptic and iron, clung to him, reminding him of every other time tragedy had walked hand in hand with the Newman name. He rubbed the back of his neck, trying to release the tension, but the memory of what he had done earlier that day refused to leave. "I saw Matt," he said, his voice low. "Or Mitch. Whatever name he's using now. And I hit him." Sharon blinked, momentarily stunned. "You hit him," she repeated, as though she couldn't quite process it. Nick's tone hardened. "He was lying to me. To all of us." I looked in his eyes. "Sharon, it's him. Matt Clark. He's playing some kind of game, and I'm done pretending otherwise." His anger faltered for a second, replaced by guilt. "I shouldn't have done it there, not in public. But I couldn't stop myself." Sharon looked at him with a mix of concern and resignation. She knew Nick's temper, knew that when it came to family, he acted first and justified later. Moments later, Noah returned to the room, moving slowly, his hospital gown slightly askew, his expression pale but steady. He was trying to act composed, but the bruises around his temples and the faint tremor in his hands betrayed how fragile he still was. The accident had left him with gaps, small fractures in his memory that refused to heal. "So," he said, settling onto the edge of the bed, "are you two going to tell me what's really going on? Or are we still pretending you don't know more about that night than you're saying?" Sharon and Nick exchanged a silent look, the kind of wordless communication born from years of shared pain. They had both hoped to avoid this, to shield their son until he was stronger, but there was no use pretending anymore. The truth had claws, it would find him sooner or later. When the doctor entered moments later, they seized the chance to delay. He was a kind man, graying at the temples, the kind of physician who had seen too many families unravel under fluorescent lights. "What should we do?" Sharon asked softly. "He doesn't remember everything, and we're not sure how much he should know." The doctor studied them for a moment before answering. "Tell him," he said simply. "Bit by bit. The mind can't heal what the heart keeps hiding. If he's ready to ask, he's ready to hear. Let his memory do the rest." His words were calm, but final, leaving no room for argument. Then his tone softened. "And I do have some good news. We can remove the bandages today." The tension in the room eased slightly. Nick, trying to lift the mood, forced a crooked smile. "Get ready, kid. You might look like Frankenstein for a while." Sharon shot him a look, half warning, half amusement, as the doctor began carefully cutting through the gauze. The layers unwound slowly, the sterile smell of antiseptic filling the air again. When the last strip fell away, Noah blinked against the light. The scars were faint but visible, a reminder of how close he had come to losing everything. Sharon reached out, brushing his hair back from his forehead. "Don't worry," she said softly, her voice warm enough to chase away the chill. "Allie will still love you no matter what." But Noah didn't smile. His expression shifted, not sadness exactly, but discomfort, something heavy and unspoken. Sharon caught it immediately. "What's wrong?" she asked gently. "Does it hurt?" He shook his head, eyes unfocused. "No. I don't know. It's nothing." But the silence that followed said otherwise. After a moment, he straightened up, his voice steadier. "You said you'd tell me everything. So start talking. What do you know?"